It started with flashing lights and raised voices, a routine traffic stop that turned into something far more sinister. In a quiet neighborhood, an ex-MMA fighter found himself face to face with a group of corrupt cops. What should have been a straightforward encounter spiraled into an abuse of power, leaving him bruised and humiliated. But this man wasn't just any fighter. He had trained his whole life to stand up when knocked down. Instead of retreating, he channeled his pain into action. What he uncovered about these officers will shock you, and his next steps will leave you speechless. This is a story about resilience, justice, and one man's fight to take on a broken system. Stay tuned to see how he turns the tables in a way no one could have expected. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The man at the center of this story, Jason, wasn't just a fighter in the cage. He was a fighter in life. After retiring from MMA, he focused on mentoring troubled youth in his community, teaching them discipline and respect. But none of his training could have prepared him for what happened that night. The officers claimed Jason was resisting, but the footage tells a different story. As soon as he questioned why he was being pulled over, their demeanor shifted. They weren't there to enforce the law. They were there to assert dominance. What followed wasn't just an abuse of power, it was an attack on everything Jason stood for. Shaken but determined, Jason couldn't just walk away. He began digging into the officer's history, discovering a troubling pattern of misconduct swept under the rug. What he uncovered hinted at something much bigger, something that could expose corruption on a massive scale. Jason knew he couldn't fight this battle alone, so he reached out to a trusted friend, Mia, a local journalist known for exposing tough stories. Skeptical at first, Mia agreed to look into the case. What she found in the public records shocked her: complaints of excessive force and intimidation tied to the same group of officers. Yet, time after time, those cases were mysteriously dropped, leaving a paper trail of unanswered questions. Meanwhile, Jason started hearing whispers from others in the community, similar stories of harassment and fear. One young man shared how the same officers had threatened his family to keep quiet after an unlawful search. Another described a setup that nearly cost him his job and reputation. The more Jason and Mia uncovered, the more it became clear this wasn't a few bad cops. It was a culture of unchecked power. But digging this deep came with risks. Strange cars started circling Jason's block late at night, and Mia noticed a spike in anonymous threats. Still, they refused to back down. What was at stake wasn't just Jason's fight for justice. It was about exposing a system that had betrayed the very people it was supposed to protect. And as they pieced together the puzzle, they realized they were getting closer to something that might just bring everything crashing down. As Jason and Mia pushed forward, the pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. They discovered evidence pointing to a cover-up, a network of falsified reports, missing body camera footage, and victims too scared to speak out. One name kept coming up: a high-ranking officer who had quietly shut down multiple investigations. This wasn't just about a few rogue cops. It was a system built to protect itself. Jason, fueled by a mix of anger and determination, decided it was time to go public. He and Mia arranged a community meeting, inviting locals to share their stories. What they didn't expect was how many people would show up. One by one, they came forward, recounting stories of intimidation and abuse, their voices trembling but resolute. The room was filled with anger, but also hope, a sense that change might finally be possible. But just as momentum was building, the threats escalated. Jason's gym was vandalized, and Mia's car was followed for miles by an unmarked vehicle. It became clear that someone was trying to silence them. Yet, instead of backing down, they pushed harder. They filed a formal complaint with the state's attorney general and handed over their findings. The response was immediate: a subpoena for the department's internal files. As the deadline for the files loomed, Jason and Mia braced for retaliation. They knew the truth was close, but they didn't know what lengths those in power would go to keep it hidden. Every step forward felt like a step deeper into the unknown, and the stakes had never been higher. What they were about to uncover would shake the entire community, and maybe even more. As the subpoena deadline approached, Jason and Mia thought they were prepared for whatever came next. But they weren't ready for the bombshell that landed in their laps. Late one evening, an anonymous source sent Mia a package, a flash drive labeled only with the words, "For Justice." Nervous but curious, she called Jason over, and together they reviewed the contents. What they found left them speechless. The drive contained hours of damning footage, hidden camera recordings from inside the police department. The clips revealed senior officers openly discussing how to manipulate evidence, intimidate witnesses, and bury misconduct complaints. But the most shocking part, it wasn't just the officers involved. Several local officials, including a city council member, were heard colluding to protect the department's image at all costs. This was no longer just a case of corrupt cops. This was systemic corruption at the highest levels. Jason and Mia knew releasing this information could put them in serious danger, but holding it back wasn't an option. However, before they could act, Jason's home was broken into, and the files they had collected over weeks were destroyed. It was a clear warning. With the anonymous footage now their only leverage, they realized someone on the inside might be trying to help. But why? And could they be trusted? As the walls seemed to close in, Jason and Mia made one final desperate decision: to go live with the evidence in real time, leaving the system no chance to silence them. But as they prepared for their bold move, something unexpected happened. An unmarked car pulled up outside, and two figures stepped out. Jason and Mia froze as the two figures stepped out of the unmarked car. It was hard to tell if they were friend or foe. One of them raised a hand, signaling they wanted to talk. Nervously, Jason opened the door. The man introduced himself as a whistleblower from within the police department. He explained he'd been collecting evidence for years, but didn't know how to safely expose it, until he saw Jason and Mia's fight for justice. The whistleblower handed over a second drive, one containing even more explosive evidence: detailed logs, communications, and financial records tying the corrupt officers and city officials to illegal activities, including bribes and falsified arrests. This was the smoking gun they needed. With no time to lose, Jason and Mia went live online, sharing the files in real time with the world. Within minutes, the live stream gained traction, with thousands tuning in to see the shocking revelations unfold. The pressure on the system became unbearable, forcing the state's attorney general to act swiftly. Arrests were made, including the high-ranking officer and the implicated city council member. The community rallied, demanding reforms, and the corrupt power structure began to crumble. But just as Jason thought it was over, the whistleblower revealed one last secret: a hidden account linked to a powerful, unseen figure funding the entire operation. The fight wasn't completely over, but Jason realized something important: he wasn't alone anymore. The community he once sought to protect had joined him, ready to continue the battle for justice together. In the weeks that followed, Jason and Mia watched as their community transformed. The arrests sent shockwaves through the city, and the public demanded deeper investigations into the systems that allowed such corruption to thrive. New leaders stepped forward, pledging transparency and accountability. For the first time in years, people felt hopeful that real change was possible. Jason returned to his gym, where he was met with overwhelming support. The young men and women he mentored saw him as more than a fighter. They saw him as a symbol of resilience and courage. Mia's story made headlines across the country, cementing her reputation as a fearless journalist. Together, they proved that even against powerful forces, truth could prevail. Though the hidden figure behind it all remained a mystery, Jason and Mia knew the fight wasn't over. But now, they weren't just standing up for themselves, they were standing up for a community ready to fight back.